Welcome to the first episode of the Tanuki Bros podcast. Today we're going to be talking about...
Applause later.
I'm two Topo Chicos in. Ready to go.
So we are talking about the Lord of the Rings most recent movie, which is the War of the Rohirrim. And right now we're just marathoning through... What?
Is it? Nothing. Keep
Yeah,
going.
we are.
What was it? Wait,
You're like
I thought it was Battle of Five Armies. I watched the wrong thing.
That was the last one I saw.
I watched Finding Gollum.
Last one I saw was Two Towers.
That's like the random relative that's like, I saw that Gollum movie that was coming out, and then they're like, see, look at the trailer, and then it'll be like random clips
AI
from
trailer.
yeah, and then there's like one AI clip of Gollum in there.
Okay, so my phone has been doing this thing where it lets me know that there's a new trailer out for a movie, and I quickly look it up. It like Google actually says you got a new trailer, and I'm like, oh, and I'll look, and it's literally a fan made trailer. It's not a real trailer. It's a fan-made trailer, and I'll go, "This isn't real."
Yeah, okay. It's like, guys, check out the new trailer for Fantastic Four, and you're like, "Oh man, really?" And then like the first shot is the thing from the 2005 movie, and you're like, "Oh, okay." But anyway, what we've been doing, we've only done one of them so far, but we're going down all of the animated Lord of the Rings films currently. So we started with our first episode with The Hobbit. If you've not seen that, please go check that out.
You mean we started with the greatest adventure that was ever known?
The greatest adventure is the one that lies ahead, Isaac. So,
which you would know if you watched
watched the movie.
With that inside joke, I'm gonna watch.
Hey, Abraham, real quick, where's my dime?
You were supposed to save this for the merch moment here. I actually did bring both your guys' dimes.
Watch the other one to know what the heck we're talking about.
I was ready with the 2 dimes this time, you guys. So hold me to it. Next time we do a review, like for the Lord of the Rings film, the item I'm going to bring in is going to be 2 dimes for you guys. So later, I want these dimes back. Thanks for watching the movie with me.
Oh my gosh. Well, no, I really do have to see it. Hold on.
You're like, guys, I actually haven't watched it yet. I was just hoping you wouldn't notice. But yeah, so we're going through.
That would be a funny idea for another series. One of us never see it, and then just see it.
Like, just trying to play it up. Yeah, like one of us have to figure out who. Like one of us is faking it, and we have to figure out who didn't see it out of the group or something like that. That'd be funny.
That would be funny. Just to let you know, there's a lightning thunderstorm going on outside right now. So if you hear it, I'll let you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was thinking about that too.
We'll still keep recording. Okay,
guys, candlelight. I still have self-service.
Would you like me to read the synopsis?
I got a whole fridge of these. So
Lord of the Rings, War of the Rohirrim.
Yes, please. Go ahead and inform us about what this movie is about.
Everyone be quiet. I'm joking. All right. Lord of the Rings, War of the Rohirrim. Synopsis. A sudden attack by Wolf, a clever and traitorous Lord of Rohan, seeking vengeance for the death of his father, forces Helm Hammerhand, the King of Rohan, and his people to make a daring last stand in the ancient stronghold of the Hornburg.
Pretty good.
Nothing to do with Hera at all.
Okay, I was going to say that. So I looked that synopsis that was on there, and I didn't write that. That was off of IMDb, and I was like, that was a little bit of an odd one because they mentioned Wolf attacking. Yeah. But then I was like, wait, they don't mention Helm Hammerhead. They don't mention any of the main characters.
Yeah.
So
I think they were kind of keeping it.
When we get to the lore section, there's reason for that. I think there's reasons they didn't cover it too much, but we'll get to that later.
So let's do our first topic is going to be our spoiler-free review, or is what we like to call who is the best audience for this film. So
That's a spoiler free.
It's spoiler-free as much as we can. So if you've not seen the movie and if you're interested in seeing it, watch this section and then we'll kind of tell you when to stop. My thoughts with this film in terms of family-friendly rating, audience rating, and who it's made for, I would say don't watch this with really little kids, because I was actually kind of surprised while watching it, because like you're watching something going on and they're like, an arrow just flew through this guy's neck and then he fell over dead, and you're like, oh, like that guy lost an arm. And then so no spoilers on who that is that happens, but there's definitely more bloody, or not gory, I wouldn't say, but like some moments where you're like, ooh, like probably a little kid that's like 5, 6, 7 probably shouldn't be watching, but it's not.
I would say a child that I would say anybody above 9 3/4. Just not an 8-year-old is just too young.
9 3/4. How about 2 dimes?
So my take on it is that definitely like 12 and up, older kids, but
PG-13.
Beyond that too is I think this is a good movie for someone that is familiar with Lord of the Rings, but they probably primarily have watched like just Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Like by the way, like if you've seen the Two Towers, like if you had a friend that you showed Two Towers to and they liked it, then I think you're safe to show them this movie. I do not.
Yeah.
And for example, so I took my fiance to see this movie. She had only really seen Two Towers and Return of the King, and she really liked this movie. But she doesn't know anything about the backstories. Just literally, if you've literally only seen those movies, I feel like there is a lot. If there are the things that worked in Two Towers, they do like pull a lot from the movies, even visually.
I would definitely say that's kind of when I watched it with my wife for the first time, we were saying the same thing, where it's like the movie is kind of set up enough where you don't need to watch the other films in order to get context, but then like they'll have little things in there where you're like, well, if you were a Lord of the Rings fan, you're gonna get some stuff out of it, but it's not like required watching. Like it's not like, oh, you jumped into the middle of like the second Hobbit movie and you're like, what the heck is going on, kind of thing.
But I definitely feel like it leans more towards casual or catch all kind of thing. And like I feel like it, because like there's, and I'll talk about this later, there's certain things that in the context of the story don't really make sense. But if you just like Two Towers and you like Lord of the Rings, you're like, there's more Lord of the Rings stuff. It doesn't hurt. That's what I'm saying.
What about you,
Adam? Like they could enjoy it.
I think it's like anybody just watching it. It's like it's a good story. It's got a lot of it's got some like good messages to it. It's got some deep thoughts to it too. It's not like the happiest of stories, but it's like but it's got some good stuff. But at the same time, it's like
it is technically a war movie.
There's some deep but then there's like it's kind of like watching like Rogue One or something, because
I'd agree.
This other part of the story that kind of helps set up other stuff, or kind of like world building as well, and it's got some really good stuff to it. I really liked it a lot.
I did too.
It's like the Eagles being on it and some other things. It's like you got to see some other aspects. Wait, that's a spoiler. That's on the trailer.
It's in the trailer.
Yes.
Wait, no, what?
But yes.
I can't believe this movie has Helm's Deep in it. What?
I think it's like an all audience thing.
I gave my rating. I said it's kind of for like young teens to adults. It's kind of one of those things where like, as long as they're not too sensitive or scared of things. I mean, if they made it through the cartoon Hobbit, they can make it through this. I'd say that.
Yeah. Because if somebody doesn't like animated films,
That's
the cinematography of it the film is really well made. I mean, it has some Studio Ghibli vibes to it. But if somebody's just, I don't like cartoons, then
that is something I wrote down too. I was like, if somebody is very like, oh, it's animated, I'm not going to be that interested.
Yeah,
I think it's one of those cartoons like it's calm enough that you could probably, if you're like, oh man, I get overstimulated by colors and stuff, you could probably enjoy it. But at the same time, if you just cannot get past the fact that it's animated, then you're probably not going to enjoy it. Sadly,
I will say too, with the animation, it is like, even though it's like a quote unquote like an anime, it doesn't do too many tropey things that it would turn off like an anime person that doesn't like anime.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You just did this, and
you did this, and all of a sudden confetti fell down from the sky.
I don't know why Isaac's got the magic touch with those things.
The magic touch.
Love you guys. Love you.
That's what we're saving that for the end, guys.
So we should do that at the end. That'd be great.
Well, it's like, for instance, like the group that I saw the movie with, they really were big fans of anime, but they really enjoyed the movie. But I feel like it visually looks really pretty. There's a lot of like the eagle flying over and the horses and all that. It does kind of keeps your attention, and just even the landscape. It doesn't feel to me, anyways.
It's got realisticness,
realism
in terms of the tone.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say honestly, like if I were to recommend it, and that was kind of the other thing, is like, would you recommend it to people? I would. I would say it's worth watching, and I would say if you're a Lord of the Rings fan, it's definitely worth. It's like, it's not required watching, but it's definitely worth watching at least once, just to get something out of it. And then
I would preface it like we said about it being a more serious film. It's like, to me, it's like somber. It is a more somber film, and I think that was one thing to go in. It's good to know that.
Yeah,
just straight off, it's better to know that going in.
I'd agree. It's
kind of like watching Rogue One. It's a really good story.
Yeah, that's a good comparison.
You kind of know that it's not. Because it's kind of like a darker story, but it's more of a very serious story from the book too. But it's like it sets up so many things, and you kind of get a glimpse into that time before,
Yeah, and I would say that's exactly, and that's, I think this movie takes place, I think it's like 200 or 300 years or something like that before the other one. I thought
it was 200 years before.
I think that sounds right, but that even gives you an idea. Like, if you aren't a person that's seen like Lord of the Rings, and you're just wanting to watch something, even if you're like an anime fan but you don't care for Lord of the Rings, or you're like, I've never checked out Lord of the Rings for whatever reason, I would say that it's a good way to kind of get into the series. That being said, let's go ahead and move into our next topic, and we'll say everything's spoilers after this moment. So if you've not seen the movie and you're interested in seeing it, now's the time to to stop. Okay, so our next,
come back later.
Pause and come back later after you've watched it. So our next topic is, usually we'd cover something with merch. And my only bit of merch got spoiled with 2 times that I had.
That's literally all you.
That's all I had.
Your mug you've got, your second breakfast mug.
I've got my second breakfast Lord of the Rings mug. What do you got?
Isaac?
That's super loud.
Topo Chico.
That's a spoiler right there.
I didn't know.
Topo Chico, sipping it down on the movie.
They come from the podcast.
Topo Chico.
I will say, I did the merch the merch that did bring. Hold on a second.
I was gonna say, it's kind of like the Star Wars commercial from Chile. You know, where they go for that. I forget what that drink's called.
Crystal.
Yes. It would be Hera goes for a drink. Oh, Topo Chico.
Bro, there's a scene when they're in the they're in the helm, and they're in Helm's Deep, and they're in like the area where the food supplies are, and they're like, we're almost out of supplies completely. And then it would be funny, just like pans over, like, what's this?
Right.
Crystal.
That's it.
Isaac, what's going on?
What did you get? What you got?
He's got something to show us here.
So these kind of just came in the mail today, so this doesn't have anything to do with it. But I got.
Oh no!
Is that a Carnotaur?
Carnotaur.
Yeah, I remember the Carnotaur. There was a bunch of dragons in the movie.
This is from the 2002 Disney's dinosaur movie. So this is Kron, I think his name was.
Oh man,
I'm not really sure. So, like I said,
okay,
I was thinking. So part of my thinking was, oh yeah, there's like dragons in it. There are no dragons in this movie.
I know.
I was about to say that. That is like the least Lord of the Rings thing. Hey, can you hold up Aladar again? Because he looks like, honestly, he looks kind of purple.
Yeah, I do. Well, that's
reminding me of Barney.
That is hold on.
Like the girl dinosaur. Or whatever.
Yeah. Here I do have an Aladar though. Here, Mira. That was her name. It said I'm hijacking this to be a Disney's dinosaur video, and that's not what this is supposed to be.
Hashtag Disney princesses. Who remembers Mira? That's the princess that I stand right there.
Anyone watching this right now?
$5,000.
Anybody watching this right now is gonna go, hey, I thought we were talking about Lord of the Rings.
You come in late. It's Aladar.
Oh boy.
They're like, I was gonna skip ahead after the spoilers, but then they come back and this is what we see. Hey guys.
Well,
just cut that. Just you should put a sheet over your head and just have them talking.
Every time you talk, so what did you think?
What did you think about the guys?
Well, I thought that honestly the part with the eagles was the most compelling because I can relate the most.
Do you want to see what I have?
I was gonna say, go ahead and show what do you got?
So here's what I have. Yes,
I get talking to the guy.
Yeah.
Gondor answer.
Gondor. Honestly, Gondor was they helped really.
Gondor was mentioned.
Yeah, Gondor was mentioned in there. The only other thing I was gonna mention, because there was merch for this movie in particular. I've got Lord of the Rings merch, but nothing for this movie in particular. Something that I think that was super funny. I don't know if you guys follow any of the popcorn bucket things that they have for movies anymore. Do you guys ever see that? Actual popcorn buckets.
They didn't have any at the theater I went to.
They made one for this movie. I don't know if you guys saw it or not, but they made one for this movie, and it is Helm's hammer, his big war hammer. The bucket is the top of the hammer, and it's got a big handle.
I know. You know what I was thinking of is an old offering plate, like they used to have with a pole where you reached across. And I thought, you can reuse it. You want some popcorn?
Actually, that's really practical because if you go to the theater with your family and you're like, Dad wants some popcorn, and you just hold the handle out and it's like, Dad, can you hand that back? And he just holds the whole bucket out there.
That's funny. If only we had gotten that off of eBay. I've got Thor's hammer.
I'm just gonna keep randomly popping these dinosaur toys. I'm sneaking in my dinosaur McDonald's toy unboxing as we.
I wonder what video we're covering next time.
Oh, guys, are we watching Dinosaur next?
We watching Dinosaur?
No spoilers.
They do move. It hurts. Okay. What else is? So I will say, for merch wise, I didn't really notice this. Just going in, to various stores and things. I didn't really see a lot of merchandise or publicity for this movie.
Sadly, me neither. They didn't promote it a whole ton. The most I saw, they had 3 Funko Pops, and I think it was
they had
Wolf, Hera, and Helm.
Pops.
I think.
And I know. I was really gonna get my wife Hera, but I gotta get. Yeah.
I really feel like this movie, though, and this is just maybe not super spoilers. Even though there's things that are good and bad, when I really think it could have been a much more popular movie. If this had been publicized as a bigger movie, I think this really could have done really well.
I actually think it could have too.
I really think it could have really popped off, and
I would agree with that.
I feel like it could have pulled in people that might not have seen it just because the story is good enough.
The story is good. The animation is pretty good. I mean, even like in terms of things, I think let's go ahead. We'll touch on some of the animation stuff with the production on here, but I'll talk about a little bit of that. The movie came out last year on December 13th, so it's in that spot where people would usually go out and see a movie, like talking about people going to the theaters, because it was right at the end of the year, and honestly, there wasn't a whole lot to my memory that came out at the end of last year, because it was kind of like an emptier
Star
year.
Wars or Marvel.
So I feel like they should have promoted it a little bit better, but what else? Production wise, this was the first time they'd done an animated movie that was within the same universe as the Lord of the Rings cinematic universe. So unlike the other cartoons we're going to be watching, this one ties into those. And the company that helped make it, which this was like talking about like promotion of things, it was Sola Entertainment that did most of the 2D animation on there, and they did work on the Shenmue anime, Tower of God. They worked on the newer Ghost in the Shell anime and the Ultraman anime, which I haven't seen either of those. Supposedly they're doing an Elden Ring anime too, which I was like, that would kind of make sense because Elden Ring has that kind of Lord of the Rings vibe. But that was interesting. But I'm like, I know Tower of God, to my knowledge, is pretty popular. I know Shenmue is fairly popular too. But I was like, they've got enough kind of hype behind it. I was surprised that they didn't like push it a little bit more. So I like, even in theaters, I don't remember seeing a trailer for it in theaters. I think I just saw trailers for it on like YouTube and whatnot. And then in terms of also with the production, I found it very interesting the way that they animated this movie. What is it, Adam?
I'm sorry. I just realized something. I'm like staring at our backgrounds while you're talking, and I was like, you know what? It's like everything is. There's something important behind all three of us, and I'm like, Isaac really likes games, and he likes dinosaurs too. Abraham really likes decorating with the leaves in the background. Me, dishes are important.
Hey,
that's right there. That's my hobby.
hard worker. That's what I see right there.
You know what ministers me is the dishes we have done. Okay,
continue. Says, sorry, lemurs and a triceratops are what.
That's right. Continue.
Disney's dinosaur.
The thing has nothing to do with what we're talking about today.
I do like the fact that you have was a Brachiosaurus. It looks like he's biting the dragon's head and he's like crying out in pain. Do you see that in the background, the way that's set up there?
Oh man, I see that. Yes.
They're like fighting.
Continue. I'm sorry.
Anyway,
I was not trying to be distracted.
You're good. So in terms of the production, though, two things that were interesting, which you guys probably noticed this a little bit. Obviously, everything was like mostly 2D, but they had like a little bit like a 3D element in there. What they did with this movie was they used a lot of like rotoscoping, where you take a picture or a video and then you essentially go frame over frame and then you just draw over some of it. And it's interesting because they said specifically they utilized that with the animation for the horses. I think they said they used it a little bit with some of the actors as well. But I thought that, which we'll go into animation here in a second, but the horses I thought were especially impressive because they said like a lot of times that's a struggle for animators to do horses really well. And I didn't have any moment that was like, oh, like that looked weird or anything. And they weren't CGI horses either, which I thought I personally thought was really cool. But then I mentioned the 3D, the other thing, which they're kind of doing this in the, which obviously this hasn't debuted, but the new One Piece, they do this as well, where they're making like a 3D map of a location and then using that 3D map to be able to take like establishing shots and things like that. So supposedly what they did with a lot of those landscape shots where it's like, oh, here's Helm's Deep or whatever, and it's from this angle, and then we're going to go inside the building. They would use that 3D space and then take footage of them like going into one area or the other. Then they would forward that 3D footage over to the 2D animated animator team, and they would rotoscope and paint and whatnot over it. So that's why it's still hand drawn and whatnot, but they utilized that with the 3D and the live action elements. I thought that was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
Other than that, with the production, let's go ahead and move directly into animation. That's kind of what I was already touching on. Character designs. What did you guys think about the character designs for the movie? In general,
Isaac, would you like to go first?
I would say that every character, there for characters that have like names.
Yeah,
there's probably about like 10, and I will say with those like 10 main people, bad guys included, each of them does have a very particular look.
Yeah,
like Wolf's dad looks very different than Helm.
Yeah, very distinct.
And they kind of in like anime fashion where like if you watch a high school anime, all the people got different color of hair. They do kind of do that.
Yeah.
So at a glance, you can definitely tell, like,
differentiate people.
You know who people are, because that can be, especially the cartoon, that can be like we ran into that with the Hobbit. Or like, I don't really know what dwarf is what. Like,
yes,
dwarf.
Yeah,
you don't really know. Even
they're all like more wrinkly than they need to be.
I know.
Yeah. I think my thing is costuming is one of my big things that I really like. And like everybody, they really made sure that everybody had like distinct outfits.
Yeah.
And like it wasn't like he just said about the dwarfs. It wasn't like, well, everybody's wearing this same brown, shroud. It's like everybody had like distinct costumes, and then they kind of kept the outfits changing a little bit, so it wasn't like the person wore the exact same thing the entire time.
I agree with that
Hera
too.
Did that several times. She changed her dresses and stuff.
And that was honestly one of my favorite like character designs was Hera's wedding dress look that she had.
Yeah,
where it was like really like glowy and like vibrant looking, but then they had that like white motif of her with like I when we were watching the movie, I said that's like the Black Widow movie, the white outfit she has in that. It reminded me of that. But they had that where they kind of would change the characters' outfits throughout, where like you had the beginning outfit for Wolf, and then they have later on where he's wearing the king's crown and whatnot. And then like speaking of that too, like I felt like the outfits, they kind of reminded me of Fire Emblem, a lot of the character designs in there. But I still felt like they could be in the world of the cinematic Lord of the Rings movies. Like, even the guy with the tattoos, I think his name was Freka. The dad had the tattoos. Remind me of like the one dwarf from the Hobbit movies where he had the tattoos on his head and stuff like that.
Go
ahead.
Sorry. I was in one thing that I think, and this helps, and I'm going to bring this up later when we talk about the connection with the book, but this story is not only like a precursor to the Two Towers Rohan that we see, but it's like a different line. It's like a different line of kings.
Yeah.
And so even the way that like Metacell, like the place, like the Rohan, like they're like place, like their main fortress looks after the events of the movie, you're like, well, you kind of can see why things look different. You can kind of see why things don't feel the same.
Yeah.
And it's almost like this kind of like changing of time, just kind of like how the end of The Hobbit when Thorin dies, and it's like, well, that's kind of the end of that story with Azog and all that history and all that stuff. You watch that movie, you're like, well, that's kind of the end of that now. And then you kind of moving on, and you kind of get that same kind of vibe. And then so when you kind of go into Lord of the Rings, it feels distinct enough from the
like you can tell it takes you can tell it takes place, but it does feel like it's its own thing at the same time. Speaking of that too, with like outfits that were similar, I noticed, which I thought was like a cool little detail, and I'd have to look at like the set production stuff, but the crown that was Helm's at the beginning that Wolf is wearing later on, it's got little horse heads on the sides of it.
Oh yeah. They made sure they had a detail in the which for an animated movie to add that kind of detail, it was awesome.
Really cool. I would love to like look and see if I could probably edit it in if it is, but it's kind of cool. I was like, I wondered if that's the same one that Theoden has later, because to my memory, his was like a single band like that too. And then what else? Any other characters? So one of the funniest ones was when we first started the movie. They have the little kid in there, and his name's like Leaf, I think, and he looks a little bit like a hobbit. And it was funny because we were watching it, and Haley was like, "Oh, it's kind of interesting how there's like one little hobbit kid here." And I was like, I don't think that's a hobbit, Haley. I think that's just a kid. It's just a young boy. He's got some pudge going on.
Yeah, he definitely though. Like he definitely had like. That's what I was saying. There's a lot of things in this movie that like kind of mirror the Return of the King or Two Towers. It's like he's kind of a little bit like Mary or Sam a little bit. He has a little bit of like bootleg Hobbit.
Yep. What other characters or things? I'm looking. See. Oh, the only other one that I had note of was the old lady that was that
was in Helm's Deep.
That was in Helm's Deep. She reminded me of the hag witch from Snow White with the apple.
Yeah.
Where it was like she first shows up, she is like they're like talking and she just like walks past and she's like randomly says something, and then they like both look over at each other. The Shield Maiden, the older Shield Maiden and Hera, they look at each other and they're like, who is this? And she's like, yeah, there's some ghosts that walk these halls. And then she's like, who says that? She's like, I do. And we're like, oh.
And then they're like, who? And then they never really say who she is. I was like, is that Saruman's ex-wife? And then she
felt like she was supposed to be more important than she was. It was like, who is this?
Yeah, I was wondering if that was a cutscene or something. There was more to it. I'm the old lady that lives in it.
Oh. What else? Okay, so then general thoughts on the animation, even now like outside of the characters. We kind of talked about that already a little bit, but do you guys have any extra thoughts on just the animation, whether it be like the action or anything like that, or any scenes in particular that you thought of?
I was gonna say I really liked the animation. All the action was really well drawn.
Yeah, I thought the animation was really good. Like one thing when my wife and I were watching it that I really liked is like the lighting effects and stuff. I felt like you could feel the temperatures because there's so many different scenes when it's like, oh man, winter hits and they're in the Helm's Deep and it was snowing and they're like huddled around a fire, but then the fire is like really warm tones, but you're in this room that's like really dark and there's blue tones. And there was even an interview I read about the guy that was, I think, the producer on it, and he was talking about one of his favorite scenes in terms of the animation was when Hera and Wolf are fighting at the end. She comes out and it's nighttime and it's kind of dark and cold looking, and then as she's fighting him, the sun's slowly rising up and it's becoming more and more like the tones are becoming more yellowy and whatnot. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, I like the when Helm's in the snow.
Yes,
the scenes with the snow, they made it look really like ghost-like. It just it was really cool.
The amount of how like the snow looked, it was like overwhelmingly like snow's everywhere. And then like I thought another scene in terms of the animation, I felt like the scene with the Mumakil, where it's chasing her through the woods and stuff. The action in that scene was really intense, and then when the big squid creature grabs it and pulls it in and stuff, that part was really dynamic and cool looking.
That part was really cool. It did remind me. It kept coming to mind though. If you guys remember when Breath of the Wild was first announced and they had that trailer,
I didn't think about that.
It looked like when he jumps and has the bow. And the things chase him. I was totally thinking the whole time, like, dang, this reminds me of like
the original back when the Wii U was out. Yeah, that's a really cool. I didn't even think about that, but it did kind of remind me of Breath of the Wild.
It just came to mind. But it was cool looking.
And then one thing I think that was cool, I mentioned even the thing with the horses and them using the rotoscoping in terms of just the animation that was impressive, is the amount of like army of people that were on screen. You even talked about like the distinct look of people. Like I watched the movie twice now just to like kind of get a better idea of certain things, but there's a lot of shots where you see like, oh, it's a full army group of people. And there's sometimes you'll watch an anime or an animation and they'll just copy and paste and like, here's the one guy and he's here and then he's here. It's not like a Where's Waldo book where it's like the same dude over and over and over again. They didn't really have as much of that. Like there's a lot of like, oh, you look at the field of people and the horses are different, or the guys the army is different and whatnot. And I think it's just cool because knowing that horses are difficult to draw, the amount of like volume that they had with that, I was impressed with that. Anything else with the animation? Let's see if I had anything else down. Oh, okay. I mentioned the keeper lady that was like, oh, she's the lady that's upkeeping everything. Yeah. When she first shows up, it's I think the only scene in the animation of the movie that I noticed this. They have this like weird telescope effect. And it reminded me of the Morshu guy from the Legend of Zelda CDI game where he's like, hey, Link, and it like gets really close to the screen.
I think it was supposed to make you kind of jump.
Link in the Zelda CDI, Link in the Faces of Evil. I will say that, okay, that did come to mind too.
Yes.
Kind of funny. Now that you say it, that makes sense.
She says, I even wrote it down. She says, many a lost soul wander these halls, and worse. And there's this like odd pause, and they're just like what? And then the lady says, "Who says that?" And she goes, "I do." And they're like, oh, and it like zooms up in their face. Like, why did you get that close to the camera, lady? It was like the only scene I noticed that with. It was like,
there's Drulik on the side of Glutko. There's Drulik round the side of Glutko.
Hey, she also reminded me of
enough rubies.
She reminded me a little bit of a Skyrim NPC too, because when she first starts walking in, she's just like, I'm just like standing here, and she's like started just randomly talking, and it's like it reminded me of like when you're playing Skyrim, and there's like just some person they're just like randomly talking to themselves. They're doing something. But I guess we'll move into the next topic if you guys are ready to move on. So our next topic is the soundtrack. The soundtrack was done by a guy named Stephen Gallagher, which I didn't really recognize a whole lot of his stuff. The biggest thing I recognized him from was he helped out with the Hobbit live action soundtrack, and it's supposedly especially he helped write the Blunt the Knives song, which I was like, that's kind of cool. I think that's cool. Pretty much from the book, but obviously creating the notes and whatnot for that. But I felt like
that song.
I love that song's good in both the animated and the live action. But yeah, I felt like it's my biggest thing was it felt like nothing I felt like was super remarkable, but it felt like it took place in the same universe as Lord of the Rings, like the other movies.
I thought the music was really good, and they kept bringing back themes. Like the Rohan theme, they still had those themes.
That is true. I didn't think about that yet with the Rohan theme.
It wasn't just like, oh, let's just do a bunch of new themes. They really had a lot of the Rohan themes in there, which really kind of throwback and stuff.
And Lord
of the Rings. There was a Lord of the Rings theme at the beginning too.
I don't think we had as many distinct bangers as we did with our last movie review with the Hobbit animated movie, where there was like there was at least 5 like, oh man, I'm gonna go back to listen to that. This one was more like, I felt like it was just kind of like, it fit the movie, but there was nothing that really stood out, especially to me.
It didn't, like, if they had used some, like, vaporwave techno soundtrack, you would have been like,
oh my gosh.
But, like, it was unobtrusive.
Yeah.
Like, it was good. I didn't like walking away, let's say when I watched the Fellowship of the Ring for the first time, and they were like, in Moria, and you get like dun 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 dun. You're like, yes, this song. You know, like you're hearing that theme. There wasn't anything I would say like stuck out to me like that, but it was nothing that was like felt like that doesn't Like, why is that kazoo playing? You know what I mean? It wasn't anything like
that. Let's be honest. Andor's trailer recently, where they have it, where it's like some pop song in the trailer, and you're like,
right.
This is Star Wars, kind of, but there's something about this that just doesn't feel quite right. And it's like, oh, modern pop song. That's why it kind of took me out of the film.
I did like the one song, the writer that the lady sang. It kind of like it was really good. The words went with everything, but it almost reminded me of Eowyn's song that she sang.
in
the Two Towers and everything. But I liked it. I thought it was pretty cool.
One that I was going to see if you guys noticed too, when I was doing the rewatch, that came into my mind was after, I think his name was Hannah, her brothers died. They were in the castle, and the music that they were singing, I don't think it's exactly the same, but it's really really similar to the song that they sang at the funeral, and I think it was Two Towers or in Return of the King.
Oh, maybe that's
I think it's in Return of the King when he dies, and it's the song that she like sings at the funeral or whatever. I thought that was cool. I think it's for her brother. I think, right?
Yeah.
But I thought that was really cool.
Theoden's son.
Yeah. Theoden's son. I always think that's hilarious. Like when they say it almost as one word, Theoden's son, and you're like, "Oh, Theoden's son,
Theoden's son, Daniel's son, Theoden's son."
It's like Thor, Odin's son, and like,
and that does, like I was saying about how within the story, I think was like done on purpose because there's like the different like ages of Rohan.
Yeah,
you have like a certain line of kings. The line of kings ends with Helm.
Yeah,
and then Theoden starts Theoden's line ends when he and his son dies. So like his son gets killed by like the orcs and stuff. So like, and that's that. So I think that's where that mirror image, you get like a little bit of those like
history repeats itself type of feeling.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Next topic let's move on to is the voice acting and dubbing with the movie. I don't know if there was a subversion of this movie at all, but obviously I think the dub is like what's highlighted with it. Was there any voices that stood out to you guys as especially cool, or ones that you thought were more funny or weird?
Yeah. Hang on a second. I'm trying to look at what
our friend in Helm's Deep. Agatha, whatever her name is. I don't know what her name. I don't know what her name is.
I forget if they gave her a name. She was just like the keeper of that area or whatever.
So, I think definitely she was memorable.
Yeah.
It seemed like she just seemed like crony for no reason. I'm gonna burn your brother's heart, and you're like, why? There's a chair right there. Burn the chair. Why are you burning?
Yeah, I know that.
That was weird. That was so odd, dude.
At least that was some humor there.
Yeah.
I need to burn this.
I thought it was really cool how they had Eowyn's actor come back to do the narration. That was probably one of my favorite things. Because it felt like it would be like her telling that story to her kids or something like that.
Right.
What were you gonna say?
I feel like that made it. I was gonna say I really liked Helm's voice.
Yes.
Which is Brian Cox. He was actually supposed to be Aslan's voice.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's
cool. I thought he did great with that. And I thought everybody's voice acting was great.
I agree. I want like the other one. It was cool that they had like in terms of cameos, Christopher Lee doing Saruman's voice. They got clips of him, and I guess they pulled some of the ones from The Hobbit, I believe, and then they reused and kind of repieced them. But they got permission from his wife before she passed away, and they were like, "Well, he really loved like Tolkien's work and stuff." So it was like they're like he would want to probably have himself in it. So it was kind of cool that they put him in there. And then the other one, I don't know if you guys noticed this one at all, but Merry and Pippin's voice actors.
Yes.
Did you guys see that?
Yes. I actually recognized their voice when we were watching it.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute. I recognize their voice. And then like
the two orcs.
Yeah, the two orcs. That's cool. I didn't realize that was them.
Yeah, they were almost unrecognizable to me. Like the one was like a little more like raspy and like I'm eating somebody, and then the other one was like, hey, his rice was like up here, and you could tell that the one that was higher. You could tell. I think it was Mary's voice actor, Mary's actor who did that one. Like you could hear just a little bit of his voice in there. Like, yeah, I can tell it was them, but it was still funny.
I thought that part was interesting too because it didn't really have much to do with the story, but then it kind of did because it's like they were looking for rings, and it's like, what does Mordor want with rings? And it's like it really has nothing to do with the story, but then it's like in the realm of that time, it was like Sauron was like trying to find all the rings.
Yeah.
So it's like it kind of made sense and stuff.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. Is this movie takes place 200 years ago prior to Lord of the Rings? How long ago does A Hobbit take before Lord of the Rings? Because I know Bilbo's like almost.
So Bilbo's is like
111th birthday.
It's like he's like I think around 50.
So is Hobbit then technically after this movie or before?
Oh yeah. Hobbit's out is way after this.
Okay, that's how I thought. Okay, so technically, if you're watching it chronologically, you'd watch this one then The Hobbit.
Yeah.
That's actually a good point.
There's some other stuff with like timeline wise. We can talk about later with the book. There's some very not lore accurate things, but there's some extremely accurate things that even I watched the movie and I'd read the book before, like the appendices, and then I rewatched it and I was like, why is that? And I was like, oh, that is in the book. Oh, okay. Like there's some stuff that I thought was odd, and then when I read back, I was like, oh, that's in it. I didn't. And I'll get to that later. But,
it says the Hobbit takes place 60 years before the events of the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
So 60 years, and then you would watch this one first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool.
He likes the Rings of Power.
Yeah.
Pretty good though.
I like the Rings of Power.
I like Rings of Power too.
I like parts of it.
So the
next video, guys. That's a different video, guys.
Okay. Next topic is dialogue and quotes. So related to the dub and the voice acting, what were some of your favorite lines in there? Whether they were like really memorable, meaningful ones or ones that were really funny.
So I think honestly, I don't think there were any like. Well, I think one particular. This might sound silly, but like I think that the intro with Eowyn kind of, setting it up, saying like, oh, like this is kind of like an untold story, and then they kind of set up like, hey, this is like one that you're not going to find in the legends. I think that was a good thing to do because
I think that was smart.
There's a lot of originality in it, and I don't think that's even a bad thing. But I think it was good that they kind of come out from the get-go saying that.
Yeah,
I think that was a good thing. It's like
kind of claiming that, hey, this is a story. Some of it could even be inaccurate, kind of thing. I think that's a good way sometimes to do a story like this, where it's like, okay, maybe if this or that doesn't line up, then you can just chalk up to like, oh, hey, well, this is just recounting how they remember it, kind of thing.
And I think that set the kind of tone for the movie. Like even you said about like Eowyn telling someone a story.
Yeah,
it almost felt like if you pass down a story verbally to someone, that's kind of how the story kind of feels. And I think that was good. Like I think that kind of like set up.
It's kind of like what the Aragorn's Quest Wii game, where Sam is telling his kids the story of Lord of the Rings.
But years ago, before any of you were born, there used to be rangers patrolling the lands hereabouts. There weren't many of them, and they were a grim folk, but good-hearted. Their leader was known by the name of Strider, and he was a friend of Gandalf.
I mean, that's kind of how it is, though. I mean, if you read it in Return of the King, I mean, in the appendices where the story's at, it's like you couldn't just straight up make a movie about that. It would be 15 minutes. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you've got to have like what's going on. Where is this at? You got to and you got to have like missing pieces of it. So it kind of makes sense that like you're telling the story. And it's like, I think it's still this happened. It's like, it's a story.
So, it's within the same kind of tone of the others. Was there any quotes you had, Adam, or anything that you thought of?
There was good quotes, but I cannot think of.
You were good. If you can't think of any of them, that's okay. I have two. I have two, and honestly, I kind of forgot to write down quotes after the beginning. Both of them are right at the beginning when the evil king, Lord Fricka, walks in, and he's talking about, it's like, my son wants to get married to your daughter, and that whole thing that happens there. Helm delivers this line. I wrote this down. He said, "You've missed many a council, though it seems a very few meals."
Okay.
Oh yeah, that was like
that cracked me up. I'll say so in the book. That's one of the few parts that are like right now. He says, "Fricka, your folly is grown with your belly." Like he does call him fat in the book. Like that is part of it too. I thought that was so funny.
Oh, I love that. I also I also think, I don't know, was his name Fricka in the book?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It cracked me up when he one punches Fricka and he dies, and then the guy hits the ground and he goes, "Get up, Fricka!" I was like, why does his name sound like Fricker?
Get up, Fricka! Get up!
It's like, "Get up, Fricker!"
What it reminds me of is on Home Alone when the guy is like, the one of the thieves.
Say it again because your audio.
One of the thieves from Home Alone.
Yeah.
When he like gets his hair cut off, he's like saying indiscriminate words.
Oh yes,
and he's like,
yes. I will cut that and put that in here.
Yeah,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Just beep what Isaac's saying, and we'll go.
Oh my gosh! I can't believe you said that.
We just switch to dance.
Our next topic is the plot and key scenes. So, like, the main meat of it. What was your guys' opinion of the general plot of the film?
Plot of the film. Oh, so okay, the film. Okay, so what? There's a lot of themes going on in the story, but I would probably say the part of the story that really jumped out at me the most is you've got you got Wolf's dad that is kind of wanting to kind of run the show for a while, and he's kind of stepping up to the plate and saying, "Hey, you're going to marry my daughter. My son's going to marry your daughter," and all this stuff. And then they instantly get rejected. And then there's like a fight that assumes, and then somebody dies. And that's pretty much the story, because then Wolf is like getting revenge for his dad. And then, so, I mean, it's like a tragedy type thing.
Yeah.
And then it's like, when it gets down to it, the only thing that's keeping him going is just, he's upset because he got rejected. And so I kind of feel like the story, there's kind of like Wolf's story. You kind of feel bad for him because it's like his dad gets killed.
Yeah.
And then he wants to get retaliation somehow because of what's happened to him, and then Hera rejects him. So then it's like you kind of like it's not like you feel sorry for the villain, but it's like you kind of feel bad for him. Like, just it's like
when you think his dad probably wasn't very supportive of him either. Sadly,
right? And it's like he wants to like at least do something with his life, and so then he like basically pours his life into doing something wrong. And I kind of felt like that was like a big message of the movie, and the plot line was that it was like he got rejected, and it's like when you get rejected, it's like you're not everybody's gonna like you, not everybody's gonna do what you want.
It?
Yeah, you gotta, like, walk.
What do you do with it?
What do you do?
Like, what do you do with the rejection?
What do you do with that? And it's easy. Because it's easy to turn on and because I mean I get rejected every day, you know what I'm saying, by people, and it's very easy to be like, oh, like you either want to get them back or you want to like, well then I'm like, come and see me now. It's like what is it, that Imagine Dragons song that I think of sometimes where it's like the Thunder song where they say like you were making fun of me before, but like now you're up in the nosebleed seats watching my show. It's like you kind of like, well, I'm going to show them someday, and all the haters, and I kind of feel like that's kind of what Wolf tries to do. He tries to like they rejected me, I'm gonna take them all down, and it's like best thing he could have done was just walk away from the situation.
Yeah,
and
he really should have.
I feel like there is a big part with Wolf's character is that it's like a lot of it. It's like like your identity is a really big part of this movie.
Yeah,
like Wolf's identity and Helm's identity, and then Hera's identity. It's like where Wolf, his everything of who he was just became about revenge and proving himself. And it was like he wanted to prove himself to his dad, and his dad's gone.
Yeah.
So there's nobody to prove himself to. He is the king of those people. He's the lord of his family now, his tribal, like his group now. He just by default he is. And he's never gonna like prove to his dad that he's a man and he can do this. And then instead of like with Hera, even though they're friends, he never tries to win her heart. He just like tries to act how great he is and just basically force her to side with him. And it's like everything he does like everything the wrong way. It's like this is not the way that you're going to earn her respect and earn her affection or anything.
And it's like there's a level of there's like a
kind of feel like
you're good. Go ahead.
You kind of feel like if he had behaved differently, Hera might have accepted him.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And you kind of feel that way. You're like, if you weren't being such an idiot right now and doing all this stupid stuff and doing all this, and the murders and the bad things he does, it's like if you had just came back and been humble, none of this would have happened.
Well, and I think that goes to a really big point in there too. Like it is kind of like the choices that he makes. Where he has opportunities to make choices, but like you said, he's so invested in really oddly what Hera thinks of him to the point that he makes choices that make it worse for him. Where like I noticed, like I didn't notice it as much when I first watched it, but when I watched it a second time, when he kills her brother. And a few other scenes. There's the other guy that's with him that's got like the Race Bannon look. He's got like the white hair and stuff. He's like his side. He's like
the Sheikah from Legend of Zelda.
He's like second in command. Yeah.
He keeps saying to him and saying, "Hey, like they're surrendering. They're gonna just die in there. You could come in as their king now. Like they're gonna surrender to you." And then he's like, no, he's like, I'm not going to surrender. Like this is not the way it's going to go anyway. So he just cuts her brother's like head off or his throat or whatever.
Right.
He has several moments where he's like, where she even like the part when she fights him at the end, she's like, hey, give up now kind of thing. And like, let's turn this around. And the other guy's like, hey, we lost. It's time for you to give up. And you were wrong this whole time. The guy gets like completely like upset by the fact that his second in command said that to him. And then he stabs and kills him. If you remember that Wolf kills his second in command because he's like, oh, you said something I didn't like about me. And it's like this weird thing where he like even Hera is like, if I marry you, will you spare my people or whatever? And he's like, oh, you're just going to marry me because I would spare the people, not just because you want to marry me. And he reminds me of like one of those weird guys where it's like gets obsessed about like some girl and this guy, dude, she doesn't like you. Just move on with your life and you're going to have a better life, dude. It's like, that's kind of what it reminds me of. It's like somebody who like fixates on something and it's just like, it's interesting too because go ahead.
Well, that's what I was saying. It's like rejection. Yeah. And being rejected is now become his main like identity.
Yes.
So it's like if
it's all he has.
Like if you would have just walked away, like you said, it's like I think Hera actually would have married him because like they were kids together. I think it could have totally taken a different turn. And then it'd been like, the thing happened with your dad, but like you aren't your dad.
Yeah.
And your dad was like, totally different situation.
Yeah.
And but
Yeah, I think.
But anyways, I feel like that's a good message of the story, though.
Yeah,
because
I think with that too, like there's mirrors, which something I wrote down is there's mirrors of like arrogance and humility of like Wolf's character and Helm's character, and you don't get this as much with Hera because I feel like Hera's just kind of trying to find her place in things. But
she's kind of like reacting to everything that's going on. That's kind of it's like she's there. It's like you're kind of following her through all of this.
Yeah. But like I feel like the thing with Helm and Wolf was like Helm at the beginning, he kind of acts stupid because they're like, hey, we don't have enough people to support a war right now, so we should probably go reach out to Gondor. He's like, no, I could do this. And then like he literally like disowns his nephew and is like, I didn't like the fact that you acted like I couldn't handle this. And you said the most wise choice would be this and that. So you can go hide in the trenches and they won't tell any stories about you kind of thing. Which is like, if he would have just like chilled out a bit and not been so much like, I'm going to go show that brat a lesson, he probably would have saved his sons and stuff. Because it's sad because like a lot of the bad stuff that happened wouldn't have happened if that original war at the very, very beginning would have been held off.
And it kind of also the idea too is like Helm didn't listen. It's like there's kind of like there's people put in your life to like help guide you and like give you a warning and say, oh hey let's think about that, let's use wisdom. Like that probably isn't smart. And instead it was just like no we've got a feud going on here, and then it ends up like, well, look at the destruction that came from this, from not listening to wisdom. Or at least people in your life are giving you advice. So
I think the idea too, like then like going like to the idea of talking about where the one guy like rejection was his thing. I think that Helm, he took it to heart so much that it was all on him to do everything. And that even when you see him, and he's an incredible fighter, and he has like we kind of, I forgot about this. We talked about like animation. The only like anime fight when he fights the like ice troll and he's just like duking out. He's like an incredible warrior, but it's like he took all of it on himself by himself.
Yes.
And he like almost to the point of like being afraid to let anybody else even fight.
Yeah.
And that really like, and he does do a really amazing things.
Yeah.
Even with all the power that he had, he was not going to be able to beat them all by himself, and even show like how strong. Like he punches the main guy, like part of the thing. He doesn't even mean to kill him.
No,
in the story, he just
was kind of holding back. I think honestly,
and like he did, like in the movie at least, like in there, like in the story, like he doesn't. It was like he got angry and reacted to it, and then he just kind of doubles down, and he's like very rigid.
Yeah,
to the point that, and it's not that, and it's not that he's a bad person, but it's like he can't see any other way of doing anything, and that leads to his destruction. Where I think that Hera knows that she's not as physically as strong as her dad. She knows that, and so she was looking for other ways of doing things. It's like, hey, can we learn from this? Maybe I could go use do the Eagles. Maybe we could use this secret passage thing, because he was just using the secret passage to go kill people.
That's
and then she sees like maybe that's how we can get out.
Yeah,
and where he's only saw
he
this
was very like focused, and I think that's a really good point, because I was even like, I didn't honestly notice it as much on my first watch through, but on the second watch through that I did it. Oh hey, there was a secret passageway to technically get out of there, and he was just using that to be like, I'm going to go take them out. Yeah, I'm just going to take them all out one at a time. And she's like, we technically can't really do that because they're going to keep sending people in waves and stuff. But then you think too, he had like other people that could have supported him, helping him. Because like even when Hera beats Wolf at the end, she doesn't do it by herself. The Shield Maiden lady throws her shield at her, and they work together to beat Wolf at the end, because she wouldn't have had that shield to take him down at the end. So it's like, if they would have worked together and just like try to storm them or something like that, they probably could have done better. But there was this oddness of like, no, I don't need your help fighting. Like, even when Hera was like, oh, I'm going to help you. Like, even if I don't fight, I can be like a runner between places because I'm really fast and whatnot. And he's like, no, we don't need you. Get out of the way kind of thing. It's like that idea of like relying on people, not being so prideful that like, oh, I've got this kind of thing. It's like you need to have the ability to rely on other people. And like, even like you said, the idea of wisdom and stuff too, like his nephew put out good like points and stuff. And then the guy that he ended up listening to was the guy that ended up trying to kill Hera at the one point. And they like when they set the kingdom on fire or whatever, that one scene.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot about that guy.
I think that you see the in the movie the folly of being so headstrong, so like prideful and arrogant, and then you see the where the whole thing gets out of hand and no one's willing to be humble and step back and be like, hey, maybe I made a mistake. Hey, I'm sorry for what I did. No one apologizes. There's nothing there. That it gives an opportunity for the evil guy to destroy, almost in the story, almost completely destroy their country over. And it's like, but all of those evil things, when you get into the choices you make, it leads to so much more, and it kind of gives like the devil an opportunity to wreck your life. And I think that's what makes this movie a tragedy, is where I think, which juxtapose say to Theoden, even though he has some headstrong moments, he does listen to Gandalf. He does listen to wisdom.
That's a good point about Theoden. Yeah.
And where Theoden it's sad that when Theoden dies, but he dies a hero, and he dies like somebody. You're like, wow, that really mattered. What he did really mattered. And with Helm, you're like, I don't know if it really did matter. I mean, like he was strong and he was a hero, but I'm like, but he really save his people? It's like not really.
Yeah.
And it's like you really want, and I feel it's like you want him to be that way. And in Theoden, who even he claims is like, hey, I'm not that great. Of all the kings before me, I'm really not that great of a guy.
Yeah.
And in the book, especially, he's kind of down on himself a little bit. But he, like, in the book, and they cut this out of the movie, but like he kills the like king of like the South in the book. He takes out like the king of the I can't think they're called, the Southland people. Like he takes him out before the Witch King attacks him.
Yeah.
So like you see that though, like it's interesting if you watch those kind of back to back, you kind of see the thing where it's like, whoa, this is a guy that's like listening to wisdom. He's quite a bit more humble. He's thinking really, hey, I've kind of messed stuff up. I need to fix this. The other guy is like, this is the only way, and it's the only way I've ever known, and we're all going to die here. I mean, it's like a completely different.
Yeah.
It's very similar situations.
Yeah.
That's a really good point, because if you think about it too, Minas Tirith would have fallen and the ring would have got. I mean, all of that would have happened if Theoden hadn't shown up with and gathered all those people together to get it. Like it would have failed. So he was an integral part of that, just because he stepped up to the plate and gathered everybody to help, and that was good. I think that's good.
Yeah, I agree. In terms of other things with like the plot and such, there were like little things like different scenes and plot lines in there. I think honestly, I'm glad I rewatched the movie, because the first time I watched it compared to the second time I watched it, I actually liked it better on my second watch through, because I don't know why there were little things that I didn't pick up on the first time I watched it. I don't know if it's because it was like during a weekday when I was at work and whatnot, so maybe I was more tired. But like when they bring back everybody to Helm's Deep, and Helm is like sick and whatnot, and they're like, oh man, he's sick, he's not feeling good and whatever, and then suddenly the tone of the movie like changed, and it was like, oh man, he's like a wraith now, and he's clearing the people out. I don't know why I did not pick up on the fact that was supposed to be the orcs that were eating people. And I don't know why I didn't connect at first that he was using the secret passageway to get out and go kill the enemy and whatnot. Because when I was doing that, I was like, how is he a zombie? Did he really die? What happened there? I don't know like why that blanked out in my head. I thought, It's really weird that it's like, how is he eating people? Is he like lost his mind? And then when I rewatched it, I was like, oh, the orcs are literally talking about them eating people and taking the rings from their dead bodies. And I was like, why did I not connect those two things? And then I realized partially why I think that it threw me off rewatching it. When Hera, and this is an odd scene, when Hera finds the secret passageway, she does see like a ghostly figure. And it's really weird because it looks like Helm for a second, but they're moving so quickly. I'd be interested to see if you slow it down if it looks any different. But they look like gold glowing and whatnot. And she follows that figure, and then suddenly it goes to the opening of the cave where the orcs were. And I'm like, that's probably why I thought that maybe he was supposed to be like a wraith or something at first. But that was just like interesting, I thought. But I was glad I rewatched it. Second time was better for sure. Other things with that, speaking of that, something that was a comment in the once part of the movie, which I was going to ask, it kind of in terms of the lore a little bit, I could ask about, but they mentioned that Helm wasn't an ordinary man, and they said he has the blood of the ancients in him. And I didn't know if that was like, is there any sort of like lore behind his super strength at all? Like,
so from my understanding, like, I think that like they do, like they say that like he was like insanely strong and he was like this really grim man, and like the things that like the Dunlingans, like all the myths they say about him, like they thought like if he was bare-fisted, they thought no one could kill him, kind of thing. And even in the book, when he's out there, they mention like they thought he was eating people, like they thought all these like things about like, but he became this like legend. And I think the movie does copy that pretty well. I think anything about like where his strength came from, it doesn't specifically say. And even like looking back on with like the original like people that Rohan came from, they don't really say like they like I think if they were tying it to anything, is like the ancient Rohan people, like they killed a dragon. And there's like really like hardcore stuff they did. So I think that it might have been more kind of a reference to that, because like they fought their people like fought the Witch King's people in Ingmar. So like they did do some cool stuff back in the day, like like we're talking like like 400 years before. So like I think it might have been kind of just more of a general reference. Kind of like almost like Aragorn is part of like the Doom and Dying and the Numenor.
That's what I was wondering. Almost a general statement kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it was more general than anything like specific. Like they don't think it doesn't like touch on like a real specific thing.
Do you want to cover more of the lore before we do favorite scenes?
Yeah.
So I think this segment should be called Lore of the Rings.
Hopefully, he doesn't become bored of the rings.
I kind of know because he's sleeping. No, I'm teasing.
We'll use Adam's snooze meter. When Adam starts falling asleep, I'm gonna shut up. Oh no, okay, so
what was there an interesting comment?
There's some interesting things about like Rohan, and they don't like cover in the movie. The majority, though, like in appendix, the majority that talks about Rohan's history is this story with Helm Hammerhand. That's the biggest part. Some like fun highlights, though. They do talk about how they were like kinsmen of Gondor, like they are distantly related. And this might be part of it. They do say that there is some connection to the Bjornings. So that could be that there is a connection. It says that they were close akin to the Bjornings. So it's possible with his big strength and them shifting into bear, that could be what they're kind of referencing a little bit there.
That's actually, there was that one scene when the person said "Good morning" and he goes "Good Bjorning," and you're like, "Oh, wait a minute."
Yeah, I remember. Yeah,
I remember that.
That line, Abraham. Is that your favorite quote?
Sorry,
it wasn't in the movie, but I made it up.
You guys didn't see the director's cut.
So, I probably what I'll start doing is I think if I just kind of I don't know if this is like more like a checklist thing, but just things that are in the film that definitely like are in the books.
Yeah,
they do mention, and it's not necessarily tied to the story, but they do mention that the Easterling people did. There is a connection with a plague in the Easterlings, and I thought that was really interesting with the Mumakil being sick. So there is.
I forgot about that.
There is a little bit of a connection. It's not necessarily tied exactly to that story, but like where you're pulling like lore from a very short section. That's cool that they fit it. The way they just describe Freka is to a T. Like he's got dark hair, that he's fat, that he pays like no heed to anybody. The pretty much the scene when he fights him and he kills him with one blow, that's basically more or less how it goes down. So and that is interesting. That's the only time that Hera is actually mentioned in the book, is about him wanting Wolf to marry his daughter. So that's like the.
Do you think then that you could have renamed this movie instead of War of the Rohirrim? You could have called it One Punch Man.
Get up, Freka! Get up!
One freaking Punch Man. So, and then another part, like where I was surprised, I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." They mentioned the Easterlings with the plague. That's interesting. Well, the other part was Wolf coming from Isengard. I thought they just threw that in the movie just to show, like, okay, there's a reference. But he actually does. They say he comes down from Isengard, and at that time, nobody really was using it.
I was actually that was one of my questions I had about that, because Saruman then handing it over to him. Was there any lore of like where Saruman was beforehand?
We could talk about Isengard real quick. So the Isengard, there was like or they call it like Orthanc, like or Isengard. They had the keys to it. He might have not technically been in the tower, like it might have been just locked up. But and they say it's almost like impenetrable, like even in like the books, like like the tree bear can't get in there or whatever. But he had like taken over that section. So after he's beaten, when the cousin and who comes and wins and beats at the end, he actually at his coronation he gives Saruman those keys.
Oh, wow! So that is in the story.
That's completely.
That's epic. That's actually like that a lot.
And at the time, they all thought, "Oh, like who could be more trusted than a wizard?" Like at that time, everybody thought he was legit. And they say though that in the book, like that actually was the beginning of like Saruman's downfall, or like around the same time, because there's a lot.
What was Isengard's purpose? Like, because
it was like a watchtower.
Was it just like a watchtower kind of thing?
For that area.
It used to be like a watchtower for Gondor. Because Gondor used to be way more powerful. So if you think of the Minas Morgul, where the Witch King lived, all the places, the tower that Frodo and Sam go, that's around Shelob's lair, that tower, all of that stuff, all of that was Gondor.
Oh, and wow.
So Gondor was greatly weakened, and that's why Rohan saved their butts so many times, is because they got so weak they couldn't handle certain things. So the whole, like, the lands that the Rohirrim live on were given to them when they came and helped them. So that used to all be part of Gondor. Yeah. And that's where it also makes sense when they're like, "Oh, we're going to go past the Paths of the Dead." It makes sense the Rohan people are going past there, because all that used to be part of, more or less part of Gondor at one point.
Yeah.
So like
that's really interesting. I never thought about that, like the bad guys taking over other kingdoms and stuff.
And that's such a small part. Like it's like a pretty.
Well, I feel like a lot of people who would see the movie would probably be like, "Yeah, they just put Saruman in there to get people in butts and seats," kind of thing. But it's like, No, he actually is in this story. That's pretty cool.
The other parts of the movie that his sons do die. The one son, they say he dies. He dies defending Edoras, which basically is what happens.
Because with the one that dies by he's like kills one of the elephants. He gets shot, I think.
Yeah, and I think I can't remember. I don't think if I read this somewhere, and maybe I feel like I got confused about it. Oh yeah, so his younger son Hama, he does go out. And it says like against his dad's will, he goes out to try fight, and then he gets lost in the snow. So he doesn't die exactly the same way, but he does. I mean, he does die, and I think that there are some liberties with those kind of things. But even the other movies take liberties with and when people die or don't.
Well, that's like Two Towers where the elves show up. The elves actually don't show up on that battle, but they do show up on Return of the King. In the book that I think Elrond's sons show up. So but it's
Elrond's
sons similar, but it's like it was like a different battle. But it's like it's fine.
But all the part where they're like in Helm's Deep and they're all hungry and all that's legit. And I think they do mention a snow troll. So I think him having one in the movie, I think was good just because we don't even know what a snow troll really is.
Yeah.
And comparing it to it. And also I think that was, but like they do mention it and that the Dunlingans compare him to one.
Yeah. I was going to say too, he also like talking about him holding back against Freka when we're like, oh, he killed him with one punch. When he punches the troll, he literally breaks its horn off when he punches it.
Yeah.
And I was like, that just shows he was breaking the bone with just that one strike. That's probably why he killed Freka. Freka was probably pretty weak because he just punched him. He was probably holding back enough, but still, it's like kind of interesting, I thought.
Well, I don't know if you looked in the thing, but Helm actually, his father was Danny Rand, which is actually Iron Fist. Which makes complete sense. I'm just joking.
Danny Rand?
I am the Iron Fist. I'm Danny Rand, and I'm the Iron Fist. I'm the immortal Iron Fist.
You what? Now you are remember hand.
A lot of the parts though with Helm are pretty lore accurate to the story. I think, which was pretty impressive. Like Adam said, it's basically like 2 or 3 paragraphs.
Yeah. To flesh that out,
and they keep it hit pretty close. The whole thing, and I think they did this. Honestly, I think they did this because the movies had this with Éomer, where he like banishes him. They kind of did that with Freylof, who is Theoden's grandfather.
Yeah.
So great-great-grandfather. So Freylof, he's the cousin that leaves, and he comes back. Now he does come save the day. And they say Freylof in the book is the one that comes and beats Wolf. So I think what they do is they kind of stretch some of these like characters. It's like, for instance, they say that what's his name, Helm came out with like a white outfit. Hera puts on that white outfit in the story and gets the attention. That's what Helm was doing. Freylof comes and shows up, and he's the one that kills Wolf. And
I will say they kind of split that because they even had the scene where Freylof, when he first shows up, the eagle, and I didn't catch this when I first watched it the first time or the second time, she gives Helm's helmet to Freylof. And Freylof, when he shows up, he has Helm's crown, but his helmet on, and all the guys see him, and they're like, "Look, there he is on the mountaintop or whatever," and he gets scared. And I was like, "Oh, that's kind of cool," because it is almost like Helm shows back up at the end in a way, even though it's Freylof. I think that was a cool way to do that.
And in the books, like they said, the Dunlingans, they said for like years and years later, they still thought he was a wraith and killing people.
Yeah,
like, they thought. So and so, like there are a lot for, like I said, for only doing like a few paragraphs, they do get a lot right.
Yeah.
Hera's story, like I said at the beginning, it's pretty much all original.
Yeah.
And like I think it strengthens it because it gives Wolf more character.
Yeah.
It also gives you someone to root for, because otherwise in the movie the only person connected to all the events is Helm, and then he dies, and then Freyloff isn't there the whole time. He kind of shows up last minute and helps.
Right.
So I think that otherwise you really wouldn't have anybody to like root for that whole time.
Right.
Yeah.
So
because his sons die, so it's
his sons die. So like those things are kind of out of the book. I think I kind of made a list of things that were like definitely in the book, things not in the book but kind of compatible. Doesn't really change the story, and things that are like really not in the book. The Watcher in the water, I think it's a cool scene, but that is definitely not in the book.
No, I was gonna say. I think they tried to make it different enough because it was like it's a plant-looking creature, and it was nasty looking. But it was like cool, maybe don't make it look so much like the Watcher in the water. But one question I did have about Freyloff though, when Haley and I were watching it, I was like, I wonder in canon if they changed this or not because of this or that changes in culture.
Yeah.
Does Freyloff? I didn't know because you mentioned Hera was mentioned. I was wondering if in the book, if Hera and Freyloff ended up together, because at the end, she's like, I'm leaving or whatever. And it's like, yeah, but the king will always have my sword, my loyalty, and my love. And then it's like, and then she leaves. And I was like, well, back then, they technically could have gotten married, even though they were like cousins or whatever. I was like, I wonder if in the book that was any different. That's what I was going to ask you. We were curious about that.
So interesting. So Freyloff, all they really say about him is besides him coming in and he kills Wolf.
Yeah.
They said that at that time, like Gondor was really weakened, and that he made that deal with Sauron came in and helped, like, and made a deal with him. And it said they really just kind of mentioned that it's just kind of more his connection with Sauron showing up, and they just say that he's the son of Helm's sister.
Okay, so they don't really go into it then.
They really don't go in, and I think that's the part of it that the writing part is, because I remember somebody asked me about the movie and if there was any romance. It's like, not really, like it, but you almost could have had an opportunity, because the way that they set it up, I feel like you easily could have had, because they don't say that Hera dies.
No.
At all.
Yeah.
So
they don't in the book.
She lives, but they don't say anything about it. So I mean, I think that's the part that it's interesting, is that I feel like they
could have made flush that out a little bit. Yeah,
I think that's why they kind of left it like an open end. Like, he'll always have my sword and my love. It's kind of like, well, maybe there could be, but well, we're gonna stop it there, because then because maybe they did, maybe they didn't.
Yeah, the Eowyn and Faramir romance. We're like, are they gonna get together? And then you're like, we're not gonna tell you, but it's like,
well,
that's probably how that's gonna turn out.
Yeah, and that was honestly with Faramir and Eowyn, the book, they really go into a lot of detail. Like, they put there's a lot of detail about that. In the movie, it's like 2 scenes, especially the extended. It's like
maybe see, this is my thing is, I honestly would not mind if they did a quote unquote remake of Lord of the Rings, but made like a series that was an anime, and then had the voice actors come back and use old clips, but flesh out and do like all the scenes and stuff from the book. I think that could be cool.
What I think, and this is actually what I was going to bring up about the book, or about the movie, is that I was kind of hoping they would at least give, like, either show, even if it wasn't like what was going on, but like show the elves, show the dwarfs, just show other anime, because the world that world is like very vast with lots of creatures. And they could have at least like maybe shown a scene of somewhere, but they didn't, and so that's where I wonder since the animation studio came out with this, if that's like, okay, well, they're actually going to pull from other stories.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool.
I'm trying to think. The Hunt for Gollum movie that's coming out, that's supposed to be live action. But in between certain stories, they could like, oh, let's do a story here, and it's animated. And maybe that's why we didn't see all this
my
stuff.
Wife and I were talking
we didn't
about
see the elves
that.
because, well, they want to do an elven story.
Yeah. I think they kind of did that too because she was I personally, I think I liked the movie more than she did, and we had just watched the Frieren anime series, and that shows very heavily like elves and magic and whatnot, and that was one thing that she was like, I was like hoping for like more of like the magic stuff in there, but I'm like, I think they were kind of sparsing some of the lore out because I'm like, really. This is like, especially for certain people, if you're not really into like, real heavy fantasy, this is mostly almost like a historical story where it's like, aside from the giant eagles and the one part with the troll and the orcs, most of the movie is very baseline, regular people and whatnot.
Human story.
And humans. Right. And I think they're releasing this after Rings of Power, which is Rings of Power is very much the opposite. It's very much like, you've got elves and they're making magic rings that have special effects and dwarves and all that stuff. So you kind of get a little bit of like a piece of the world that if somebody was like, they're not big into fantasy stuff, but you're like, man, you might really like Lord of the Rings. That might be a good movie to show them. Like even like Isaac, you mentioned your fiance. She may not enjoy like fantasy stuff as much, but she might get into that more just because, it's not like, I have to understand some complex magic system or different creatures and stuff. Which ones are good and bad?
Yeah, I agree with that, and people I've talked to about it. 'Cause I was telling my friends about it, and they hadn't seen it yet, and I was telling them like, well, I think that the benefit to this movie is you basically can watch it more or less independent. Like it's within its own story. I think and I think with the world building aspect, I think the only thing that I don't think the movie touches on, I think if someone had seen the movies, I can't honestly remember if the cartoon says it or not, but like at that time, like the black ships that are in they're actually having like a 3 or 4 year war with those people.
Oh wow.
So those corsairs are like wrecking their coasts.
Yeah.
So I think that could have been like maybe
a little bit.
Yeah, I think that and as much as I think like the big elephants and the Easterling people are cool, it might have been cool to use those pirate guys a little bit, only because you really don't see them very much, and that would have been kind of a cool ability. Been like, oh wow, we can't. Gondor can't come because look, those pirates are on the water. I mean, that might have been kind of a
good idea to put in there. I agree. That would have been kind of cool.
Because that's another group of people too. You really don't get to see much.
The one thing I was going to say too, I noticed. I don't know if you guys noticed this or not, but we talked about in the last episode about the fact that they had the eagles talking in the Hobbit movie, and we're like, they never did that in the live action. The way they did it, they're like, plot hole that we fixed. And you're like, eagles do speak a language, but only the wizards. I was like, okay, I see what you did there.
Did you know that the great eagles speak a language all of their own, but only to wizards?
Yes, I remember. I did. I think should that be part of our favorite quotes?
Yes, only to wizards.
That's why Denethor gets.
We fixed that one.
That's why Denethor gets really mad at Fire Emulator. Goes, wizard's pupil, is because he could talk to eagle. Never mind.
That's like
Follow me what's loyal to me, not some wizard's pupil.
Show. Yes. Hey, Abraham, what are we doing next?
Our previously scheduled program.
Next up, we're gonna talk about our favorite scenes. So, in particulars of the plot, more just actual scenes. What were your guys' favorite parts? I'll start us off with one here. The movie begins where it's like the eagle's flying over, and the first thing you see is Hera, and she's got a massive piece of meat in her hand, and she tosses it to the eagle. And I said to Haley, I looked over at my wife, I'm like, now you know it's an anime. She's got the iconic Luffy piece of meat. And there, I was like, this is how they're saying this is going to be an anime movie. That was my first clip because it gave off anime vibes. What about you, Ike?
My favorite definitely was the troll fight. Like that was the most like anime like fight scene in the whole show. And that part I liked a lot. I think it was, to me, like that was kind of the movie. It was a little bit dragging before that. So like getting to see like
it was very actionative there.
Yeah, very actionative. I enjoyed that part.
How about you, Adam?
I like the scene where she climbs up to the eagles.
Oh, that was cool.
It was like the snow, and she climbs up to find the eagle. I thought that was really cool. But then I like the scene where Helm Hammerhand, even though he's like fighting at the end, he like fights and fights till he gets frozen to death.
Yes.
I thought that was pretty sweet.
I thought that was super cool. And he was still standing. It reminded me of when, I won't say spoilers, but I'll just say Whitebeard from One Piece. It gave off Whitebeard from One Piece vibes. I also, with speaking of that, when Hera was climbing up the ice on there, it reminded me of the beginning of Rings of Power, where Galadriel's climbing up the ice with the spikes and stuff. I'm like, something about this seems a little bit familiar. Then I loved how he took down the Freka guy with one punch. I think that was so funny because I didn't know that lore about the character at all. So when I was watching, I was like, are they like faking this to make it look like he killed the guy? I was like, no, he just straight up killed the dude. Just one punch, he got him.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was really funny.
That's in the book.
Yeah.
My least, I would say, even though we're not talking about least favorite parts, my least favorite part though was the part where it's like, take my horses faster. Nope, I like this old girl. And you're like, no,
gosh. Yes. Okay, I had on here some odd scenes. That was one of the ones I thought of there, and the other one was the thing with the harp. The odd harp scene. What did you say?
I'd rather diddle on my fiddle. Woo!
The part with the harp, they're like, we're gonna go off to battle, and he's like, yeah, this may be the last time I'll see you, and he's like, keep this safe for me, and he hands her the harp, and she like hugs it, and she's like, always. Well, then literally it's like, yeah, he's dead now. His harp, I'm gonna go use it for firewood, and they're like, no, don't throw that away. And then he looks over, I think it's Leaf, he looks over at Hera, and he's like, my lady, he's like, she's gonna like take that as firewood, and she's like, yeah, it doesn't matter anymore, he's dead. And I'm like, and I was like, what was that scene in there for? And then literally at the very end, they never like they never like have it like, oh man, she has it in like a Hall of Heroes or something to honor him. Like he even says like, oh, maybe there'll be ballads of me, like maybe she could have sang a song about him or something. But instead, it's just the old lady hands it off to some random little kid at the end, and you're like, "What the frick?
You're
what
the
was
next
that?"
bard.
Use this as firewood.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was like we watched. I was like, "What is it?" That was like the weirdest scene to me. I was like, I didn't get what that was about. Another scene on there too that was really odd. I don't know if you guys would remember this. When they're building the siege tower and they're running to the edge of the Helm's Deep area. You might remember this. And
the drummer?
No. What was up with the drummer? Oh, was it?
There's
the guy was like
playing the
drums.
Drum at the top of the siege tower. And then when they released the siege tower, we laughed because it was like, they just killed the drummer. Like it was just like, well, thanks for your sacrifice. You're gonna die now.
Top again. But when they're building the siege tower, there's like some people. They're like, I think it's the shield maiden, the old shield maiden. She's like, what are they doing down there? And there's just a solid like 10 seconds of them staring at them, and then suddenly a random archer at the edge of the tower pulls out his bow and shoots an arrow, And then the arrow goes and lands like not even, it doesn't hit one of the guys. I'm like, what is he doing? Is he going to kill one of them? He just shoots it. It lands on the ground. And then the guy like looks over like, what was that about? And like looks up like, oh, he shot at me.
What are they doing?
It reminded me of this right here. Hold on. I saved the meme. It reminded me of the big thumbs up meme where it's like the guy's there, and then he's just like, oh, cool, dude. And then he just goes back to what he's doing. It reminded me of that, where it's like they shot the arrow and you're like, what was that about? There was no, why did he do that? And like, okay, we're going to go back to building the siege tower. This is like, why would they put that scene in there?
Yeah.
What else?
Yeah.
So, do you guys have any other scenes or anything that you like that you would want to mention?
I will say, I the only thing I'd probably one of the things I was very surprised about was Shadowfax's ancestors. They don't really say anything about him in it, and I think I would have thought just somewhere they would have referenced Shadowfax, and just because
because he's like one of
the. They bring that up in the books. Yeah,
they say like only the king can tame him, and then when Gandalf gets it, it's like he only listens to Gandalf. So like, and he's like, well, he's descended from all these like line of horses that's like ancient. So that's the only thing. It's not even
they have. Yeah,
I mean, it's not even a bad thing. It's just one of those things that I thought that
it could have been cool too, because Hera had her horse in the movie that they kind of highlighted a few times. They could have made it like an all-white horse and then made it like, oh, that's like the horse of royalty or something like that. They could have made mention of that.
Yeah. So it wasn't a bad thing. That was the only thing I thought that what I would know, like when you're when you're like, well, when you're like, oh, things that you think might be in it, like Saruman and the Eagles and different things like that, and Isengard, I was like pleasantly surprised. Well, that's really cool. Okay, I didn't know that. And then Shadowfax, I thought would have just been a really easy thing to put in there.
Yeah,
and he's not in it. Or
I think that would have been cooler to mention something with Shadowfax than the random like non-name drop of Gandalf in there. They were like, we gotta go talk to a wizard that he's got a few different names, and you're like, we know you're talking about Gandalf, but we just saw Saruman, so
that was You go, and it's like they're gonna talk to like they picked like, what are the blue boys? What are the blue wizard boys?
What are the blue wizards?
What are they? We're gonna go to Radagast about some rabbits.
Some rabbit stuff. But yeah, overall, I like the movie a lot. I enjoyed getting to see it. And since you guys watched the movie, I've got the 2 times to give back to you guys for
we get a treat for watching the movie.
So a last minute.
Abraham's gonna Venmo us right now.
A last minute
10 cents for you both.
If you could put a character, insert a character, any character into this movie that would just break this movie, what character would it be? For me, it would be like, Smog's here!
I was going to say Aladar, since you've been doing those puppets the whole time.
And you're like, whoa, Smog's a dragon, they got a dragon! It would be like, complete.
Okay.
Like things that they could have done.
Are you talking about like
that would have like destroyed the movie?
That would have just like ruined the movie. You've been like, what is happening?
I would have won. I think his name is Gino from One Punch Man, the robot guy, to follow the king around and be like, how does he so strong? I've got to watch him every moment.
They're like, like there could have been like, you could have like slapped in like Saruman and could have just been like, there's a.
You know, I actually thought about that. I actually thought Saruman was going to show up and help fight or something, because he was supposed to. He's like, didn't he, before he got Isengard, he was like kind of helping
it's like
territory, I think. So I thought that was going to be a scene, but
because they said that, like, what was it? Let's see here. They called him like
with the troll fight, instead of it being a helm, Gollum shows up and beats the troll up, and he's like, he wanted to find his ring, that's why. He's there, guys.
Like, yeah, so like they talked about him being like Saruman had been like a long-term friend. So I think that'd be the only other thing that in the movie they could have showed Saruman helping in some way.
Yeah.
And maybe like they could have even twisted around, like maybe you thought Gandalf was helping, and then later you're like, oh, it's Saruman who's been helping this whole time.
That would be kind of cool. I mean, the wizard who is involved, kind of thing.
Yeah, so I mean, like that is a good point. Like, and I like lore wise, he should be around. Like, he should be somewhere.
I think that is a valid point with this movie. Is there are a few things that are a little bit predictable, or they just kind of put things out front where they could have maybe had a few little things, but like, oh, there's some wizard involved, and the whole time you're hoping it's like it's gonna be Gandalf, and then you're like, oh, wait a minute, it's Saruman. He's gonna go to that Isengard tower and like set that up. Like they could have done a little bit of things, I think, to make just the flow of that maybe a little bit better.
They could have even had a scene where Saruman just like cleaned out those guys. Out of Isengard.
Yeah.
I mean, that could have just that could have been like if you had any scene. It'd been like, oh, you know those dudes, he just whooped them, and then because you don't see Saruman fight that much.
Yeah.
So that would have been something kind of cool. Like
he could have
even say that.
He could have just pulled an Aragorn's Quest Wii game where the little girl has the wand and go fireball, and then, fireball, and then like
oh boy,
and the whole crowd of the army just bursts into flame. But it's with Christopher Lee's voice. He just dub it up.
So,
come down, Saruman, and your life will be spared.
Fireball!
So what my opinion would have broke the movie is if at the end they were like looking at the fireworks and there's Gandalf just out there lighting fireworks for them and to celebrate the birthday. We got special entertainment out here. Gandalf came by with his fireworks. That would have been like, okay.
And that's where that's where it should have ended. Is it said she's like, we're gonna go see a special wizard about another adventure. And then literally it shows her riding on the horse, and then on the horizon is some fireworks, and then you hear the greatest adventure.
If you edit that and add that at the end,
they tie it in where like this movie for something, even though it's they pull like an X-Men where it's like she meets Bilbo and he's like there with the dwarves, and like, wait, this doesn't fit.
And like, what? This is on the alternate timeline.
These movies where they like randomly inserted
himself shows up like some bitch.
Yeah.
The One Piece movies where
Bilbo looks at Hera and says, "Listen, I'm putting together a team." I'm like, oh,
you think that you're the only horse rider around here?
Like, they did like Infinity War the thing.
Will Jackson as Bilbo.
Every Lord of the Rings character and villain is in this movie for some reason. Like Aragorn's there, and they just put them all in there, and you're like, "What? Like, is everyone who's not in this movie? Azog's there."
You know what would have ruined the movie for me is if they would have had a secret credit scene where it's like, guys, we got to tease out this sequence. Like, Fricka actually did survive that punch, and
he's like, one of the ring rays.
He's got like an eye patch, and he's like, hey, what's up, Fricka? I'm back.
No, he comes out of the rubble, and he's like, part 2.
They set up a sequel that's just not coming at all.
And the second one's called World War
Rohirrim. War of the Rohirrim was very hard for me to say.
It was
War of the Rohirrim. Yes.
War of the Rohirrim. War of the Rohirrim.
I feel like you could have called this Lord of the Rings, The Battle of Helm's Deep, or something like that. But War of the Rohirrim is something.
I'm telling you, Lord of the Rings, One Punch Man. There you go.
You know, if you need to do a stroke test, Mama Tip Top, roar. Say, repeat after me, Mama Tip Top, 50-50. Huckleberry.
Oh, that was fun.
I heard him on the radio.
The only other thing I've got to share with you guys, because this is still kind of relevant, because I know we're going to be covering the rest of the animated Lord of the Rings movies, but we've kind of been going in chronological order. Obviously, we watched The Hobbit first, but I actually missed one. There's one other one. So there's the Fellowship of the Ring one and the Two Towers. That's the Lord of the Rings animated movie. That'll be up next. And then after that is the animated Return of the King movie that we'll watch after that. However, we watched all of the animated Hobbit movies. There's actually a bonus one. And there's a third animated Hobbit. So we watched the 1967 and 1977 one. I'm going to pull this up real quick so you guys can see this. This is called Treasure Under the Mountain.
Abraham, this is like 40 minutes long.
It isn't. It's only like 6 minutes. Okay. This was the USSR version. It was an animated Hobbit that they were making. And when all that stuff with Russia fell through, they ended up not making anymore. And there was no footage of this until like a little bit before the live action Hobbit came out. The animation's actually pretty cool looking, but it's all in Russian.
Oh, this is in Russian. I like this show.
I guess you get your Thunderbolts.
I'm getting my Thunderbolts on right now. I'm getting my Red Guardian.
But essentially, the movie here, they don't know if it was a movie or a show, to my knowledge, but they had a lot of it animated because you get kind of an idea of how everything looked. But supposedly they actually pulled some ideas from this visually for the live action, with some of the scene here when it opens.
Really?
For the live action, I mean. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, ring those bells.
Come on,
ring those bells.
You know this guy loves his job.
You know, if everybody else put some emphasis into their job like that, we'd have a different world.
Let me see if I can turn up the sound too. Can you guys hear the sound okay?
Yes, I hear sound.
The Russian singing.
Dude, why are all the women so tall?
Look, they're dwarfs there. What's wrong with tall women?
No, like...
What? The woman is dancing with dwarves.
Dude, they're eating
dwarves are small.
They got some lobster and they got some pig. They got fish.
Just that dwarf.
Oh, what? I don't know what's going on there.
What kind of movie is this?
This is a very weird movie so far.
We're having a mature screen. Mature.
Okay, Smog's design.
Oh, that's Smog. Okay.
His design, he's got like he was snuffing gold or something because it's
look.
Like,
there's the dragon.
His nose.
Oh, there is the
oh.
There is the phone. Yep. Well, we know why the dragon came now. Too much partying.
Too much
also,
gay party.
I find it interesting that he has like armor.
He kind of does.
He's got this like Chester cheetah, little bit of like face design. I feel like.
Yeah.
The song in the background really just adds to.
Look, there's the dragon kite, just like in the movie.
That's actually why they brought that up, the dragon kite, because they're like, this is the only thing I think prior to the live action that had that dragon kite in there.
Yes, and they did put those. You know, they probably looked up all of this before they made it.
Yeah. I was so surprised because I thought I had found every animated Lord of the Rings content. And then I was digging a little bit deeper, and I was like, "What?"
Oh, that looks very much like the live action.
I know, and so honestly, I kind of like some of the animation for this one. I wish there was more to it that you could watch.
Yes, they're blurring everything very well.
And it's very like dynamic looking. It almost has like a paper craft look to it, which it probably is.
It is probably a little bit of everything.
Somebody wished upon a star.
The Lonely Mountain.
Oh, and then you mentioned the dwarves having different cloak colors. They do that in here too. Russian.
Now, Gandalf seems like a man with some business there. That's a cool opening, though.
I know, but like
they give the history,
even
the story in the dark.
The animation for this almost actually reminded me more of the War of the Rohirrim movie a little bit, with like the lighting there.
They're kind of adopting that Seven Dwarf vibe just a little bit.
Yes, with that little rocking walk.
Look at those glasses. Look at that blue beard.
We got the Tootsie Pop owl up in the corner there.
The lighting is amazing.
Yeah, it's really pretty looking.
That is beautiful shot.
I was like, that's really kind of cool.
Yeah. He was telling the story and then they just were at a table in the dark. That was pretty cool.
I thought I'd share it with you guys though, because I was like, I was honestly pretty impressed by it.
Was that it? That was the whole movie?
That was it, yeah. That is all. Yeah, I thought that was cool. Yeah, because it was a part of the Hobbit animations that I missed, but it was just kind of cool. Like the level of the animation, you could see that it was. I feel like a little more polished, but I wish there was more. Maybe someday they'll find more of it. But the fact that that was essentially like the little trailer they had for it. But I couldn't find anything about whether it was going to be a series or a movie. I'm guessing it would be a movie. But I mean, obviously there's other things that are like Lord of the Rings related, but in terms of actual just animations of like animated Lord of the Rings content, to my knowledge, that's it, aside from the 2 that we have coming up. So but yeah. Thank you guys for watching. I will. You guys, you're 2 dimes.
If you made it this far,
if you've made it
22 hours away,
all of this so far.
If you made it this far, here are your 2 dimes, your 10 cents. Please subscribe and leave a comment.
I remember I remember those 2 dimes.
I know. I dropped it on the favorite quote thing. I forgot to put one down.
But
listen, if you're watching this, we'll get better. This is the beginning. We'll get better.
But if you guys have anything else that you guys would like to see from us in terms of reviews, please leave a comment, like, and subscribe. But yeah, leave a comment on anything that you'd like us to cover. We're planning on going down the list of these animated Lord of the Rings movies. We're gonna watch 2 more, and then after that, we're gonna start something completely new. So, all right.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
And remember, if Gondor calls for aid, Rohan will answer.
You too can do magic.
The greatest adventure.
Follow us on YouTube.
Yes.
DubiousStew on TikTok.
Yes.
That's some amazing, wonderfully crafted videos. Not
I'm trying to see if I can find.
Follow their content on TikTok and YouTube. I think both their guys' handles are DubiousStew and Adam Stay Tuned. So follow both of them on there. What was the video you guys last that you guys were gonna do? You did a collab, right?
I did a top 13 Kroger's water seltzer flavors. So that's check that one out. You never guess what number 3 is.
But we'll put the links.
Question? Oh,
what's your latest video?
I was playing the greatest
video. What's your most recent video?
Most recent
What's my recent video? Oh,
yeah.
I don't know. I'm kind of taking a small hiatus, but I've got some stuff I'm working on. Yep.
Ooh.
Yep.
Well, we will put the links of everybody's socials and stuff in the bio, and then follow us. We were going to have our TikTok and our YouTube. So, love you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for watching.
Thumbs up and confetti. Yeah, fire! It's the grand finale. Like and subscribe. That's the like and subscribe button. Press it.
Or not. Leave a comment and say I love you.
Yeah, do it.
So because this is episode 2, we clearly have a bigger budget. Do we have a theme song yet?
Yeah, we should have a theme song that plays at the end now.
An end title theme. Should just say we should just make our end title the Greatest Adventure song.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, okay.
Just put it on
happening.
The end.
Greatest Adventure. It's iconic. We're gonna play right now.
Your daughter will come crawling on her knees, begging my son to marry her before the end.
Charlie, stay where you are. Charlie, would you listen to me? Stay up there.
Here's Santa. You killed him.
I did not. And he's not Santa.
Well, he was.
He's got some ID on him, I bet. Fella, if you can hear me, I'm just looking for identification.